Only he who accepts to discipline himself by voluntary asceticism can become free. If a person is unable to force himself to do what needs to be done, whether it is something as simple as turning off his phone or as complex as changing his lifestyle, what can he say about personal freedom? That is not a rhetorical question. It is a fundamental and inconvenient problem. For anyone who has ever thought their life would change with an inspirational talk, a 2-day course, or worse, an uplifting afternoon. But if you've ever sat on a bland morning with unread books, undone work, a sluggish body and a mind bargaining with reason every inch of the way, you know there's no enemy as cunning and persistent as justified procrastination. So cultivating willpower is not a matter for people who are passionate about success, but for people who are bored enough with themselves to not want to live another old cycle. This book is therefore not for someone looking for quick motivation. It is for those who dare to sit quietly and face a question that seems very old but has never been satisfactorily answered. Why know what should be done but still can't do it? And if you are brave enough not to answer that question with an excuse, then perhaps you are ready to start not being someone else, but being yourself again. In the Spine version, we encourage listeners to buy and read to fully appreciate the book's content. Because only when you read the whole book will you understand the nature of the problem you are listening to me talk about. Now let me start summarizing this book. Part 1, Success and Determination. I once overheard a strange conversation between two kids at a park, about 56 years old. One of them had a smart face and bragged. My dad bought that ship at Channel for 200 dong. You. Ask your dad to buy another one so we can race tomorrow. The other child pursed his lips and replied, the other day I asked my dad to buy me a plane. He said he didn't have any money. The sly boy smirked. Is it so easy for your father to lie? I saw my father go to the bank and say one sentence and they gave him money right away. Your father refused to go because the money pushed him. A moment of naivety that was so funny, but then I suddenly thought, there are adults like us who still think the same way. They believe that reading a good book will change their life. As if reading will end all suffering, as if you just need to understand, you don't need to practice. As if the bank will give you money just because you pass through the gate. Many friends have told me things like I've read, throw away your worries and enjoy life, but I still feel heavy-hearted like before, or I've read all the self-study books, but my career hasn't improved. I don't laugh because I understand they're not lazy. They just don't understand correctly. A book is a lamp. But if you don't plug it in, the lamp won't light up. We think we lack time, opportunity, or luck. Actually, what we lack the most is willpower. Willpower is what makes you wake up early even if it's a cold morning. It's the thing that makes you still read a page of a book when your mind is tired. It's the thing that makes you dare to give up an old habit even though it has been with you for a decade. I'm not telling this to preach. I don't believe in empty talk. I want to prove one thing, anyone who still has breath and a normal level of intelligence can practice willpower, not to become a Superman, just enough to surpass themselves, just enough to see life is no longer a quagmire but a path full of interesting challenges. I'm not telling this to those who dream of becoming Confucius or Jesus. I'm telling this to those who want to no longer be a pale shadow in their own lives. I don't promise you'll be rich. But I believe if you read this book and practice, you will no longer live by waiting for luck. Because luck only comes when you dare to prepare for it. Let's start with an old question that people often ask just for the sake of it. What is success? I once read a French novel called Rue un bel enterrement, I Will Have a Big Funeral. The story is about a dull bank employee, living a miserable life, no one is hungry all the time. One day he picked up a nameless check and thought about it for a week. Finally, he decided to keep it and get the money. From then on, his life took a turn, he started to speculate in business, climbed into politics, became a congressman and then a senator. When he died, the president came to his funeral, soldiers carrying guns sent off a splendid funeral, a brilliant success. But what kind of success? We would rather fail like Confucius, who was not used by any king, or like Jesus, who was crucified on the cross, but they succeeded with themselves because they did not buy their souls with money or tricks. To me, success is not having a car, a degree, or a house. Success is when you know clearly what you want and achieve it in a way that you can hold your head high even if the goal is small. Like learning a decent profession, becoming a father that your children respect, living a life without shame when looking back. I know many people rely on the two words, destiny, to invest goods. They believe that life is already predetermined. Some people are born rich, some are stuck in a rut. Because God doesn't give it to them. So why bother? But Fred, the man who turned the human mind upside down in the light of science, said, God doesn't harm you, you harm yourself, your subconscious mind sets a trap and pushes you into it. You pick the wrong person, you get yourself into trouble. Then you call it a scam. You failed the interview and then blamed it on bad luck. But you didn't see how dumb my face was at that moment. How fireless are your eyes? How lifeless is your speech? I know a woman who, when she was young, had many worthy men come to ask for her hand in marriage, but she refused them all. Because of fear of being a daughter-in-law, because of fear of being bullied, because of fear of hot-tempered husband, afraid of all kinds of things. When she had no choice, she married a man she did not love. She lived like a stranded in a withered marriage. Then she turned to resent her husband and children. Then she said her life was miserable. But who chooses that suffering? Do you see the ill-fated beauty? But in fact she pushed herself into the path of suffering. She is passionate, she is filial, she sells herself to redeem herself. And then, every step was prompted by her heart, not by circumstances forcing her, she tied herself in the rope of love. Even Master Tam Hop said frankly, the source is in the human heart. A man with 3 wives, all 3 died young from illness or accidents. Everyone says he is unlucky. But then I found out he was hot-tempered and pushy. All 3 wives lived in stress, the illness was not random. Accidents are sometimes the lingering consequence of a stressful life. What we call bad luck is sometimes the result of 10 years of wrong living. There are still random situations like people in the bomb shelter died. There is one person standing in the middle who is fine. Like winning the lottery, like a bomb going off course. I do not deny. But 9 out of 10 times. Fate is how we live, how we choose, how we think, how we repeat our daily habits. And if we believe in numbers absolutely, what will we do? Lying in wait, mouth open waiting for the fruit to fall, the fruit does not fall. But if it is useful, it is also useful to others. So I want you to remember one thing, people with determination can create their own luck. I'm not kidding. Have you ever wondered if successful people are the ones who have suffered the most? Poor, deaf, blind, disabled. But then they rose from that hole. Edison failed 1,000 times before he invented the light bulb. Every time I fail, he writes down one thing, I learn one more wrong way. And so he got closer to the right way. Deaf but still write music that touches the hearts of those who have never learned music notes. Keelan Keller was blind, deaf and mute, but she wrote books and gave speeches that inspired all of Europe. She slept in the morgue and was so hungry she had no strength to cry. But she did not lie down and die. She stood up with her hands, with her feelings, with her desires. Charles Darwin once said something that has stuck with me. If my body weren't so useless, I wouldn't have had the strength to perfect the theory of evolution, pain, and disease. Knowing how to use it is where theories that change humanity are forged. I once heard a story about a man who lost both legs in an accident instead of complaining. He lay there reading the whole library, and then he became governor of the state. Not because of pity, but because people saw in him a will that had become political, a will to lead, a survival ability beyond the ordinary. I have met people so poor that they had to learn to read and write by watching people teach their children in the neighborhood, by eavesdropping, by secretly learning by rote. But they study because if they don't study, poverty will be their destiny. Then poverty is just the past. And don't forget that poverty gives us the strongest excuse to rise up. Rich people fear losing their wealth. The poor have nothing to lose. So they dare to take risks. So they dare to do things that others are afraid to do. People often say that no one is rich for 3 generations, no one is poor for 3 generations, that's why. Don't think that without capital you can't do anything. Your most valuable capital is not money but knowledge, experience and will. No one can steal that capital, and inflation cannot devalue it. Only you can throw it away. And even when imprisoned, exiled, and buried at the bottom of society, there were still people who wrote epitaphs. Sima Qian was castrated, but wrote epitaphs. King Wen of Zhou wrote the Book of Changes while in prison. Great ideas sometimes only bloom in the dark. Light is distracting. Night is when the ego is truly honed. So if you are facing injustice, rejection, failure, I say, be happy. You are facing opportunities that people who live comfortably never have. The chance to become someone else. Someone who might surprise you if you look back next year. I once read a quote from a French thinker. Fat horses can't run fast, sounds like a paradox. But the more I live, the more I see it is true. A well-off person often lacks determination, a comfortable person often lacks muscle. Those born in luxury, if not alert, will be rotted from within by comfort. You should notice that the people who built empires were mostly people who used to shine shoes, sell newspapers, work as waiters in restaurants, or even collect scrap metal. Their hands were covered in oil, their feet were swollen from stepping on bottles, and in their heads at that time there were no lofty ideals, only a resounding sound. I don't want to die in this life. That sentence was enough to get things started. So if you were born poor, consider it a gift. A gift wrapped in burlap, tied with rope. But inside is a power you have never discovered in your life. I once heard a friend say in a bored voice, if only my father weren't so rich, I would be better off now. I understand, because he had no reason to escape the safety net that surrounded him too soon, he had never been afraid of hunger, of falling, of unemployment, so he never tried to the end. You have a discount, you do not have capital. Well then I'm happy for you. You have no idea what a huge advantage you have. I just pity the rich kids. They think they have everything but they have nothing but stagnation wrapped in silk. Remember that. You don't have money but you have people. And if you still don't believe that people can rise from adversity, let me tell you another story. A man named El Borat, 16 years old. He is a blacksmith. 11-hour work day, one hand hammer, one hand iron, one hand coal. But amidst those harsh threats, he learned not one but 18 languages and 32 dialects. People call him the blacksmith scholar. I don't call you a scholar. I call you a wool machine or what? J.D. Rose has been wandering around making a living doing all kinds of jobs since he was just over 10 years old. He used to sleep on the sidewalk and sing on the street. But he read, he studied, he didn't let fate decide how he would live. People asked him which school he went to. He replied, I studied in the school of adversity. What school do you go to? You said you don't go to any school, good. Because no school teaches you to be strong like life. There is a truth like this. Many of the most successful business people in America, England, France, and Japan never went to college. They learn from debt, they learn from failure, they learn from under the dorm table, they learn from rejected calls. And because no one opened the door for them, they learn to kick the door down. Be careful with people who have never been helped. They are the most feared people. Because once they find a way to help themselves, the whole world will sooner or later know about them. I was once invited to speak to a group of young people at a re-education camp. They sat silently, their eyes cold, their faces grim. Someone asked me, "Uncle, we have been to prison and were treated like trash. Do we still have a chance?" I replied, "Prison doesn't kill anyone, but if you believe you have no chance, that belief will kill you. I'm not afraid of people who have had bad pasts. I'm only afraid of people who believe they can't get better." There were people in prison who relearned to read and write, learned to be mechanics, learned to repair cars, and learned psychology. And when they come out, they become people that the whole neighborhood respects because they have been to rock bottom, so they know how to appreciate the light. A man who was exiled and still wrote a great book is not the clearest proof of that. You can be crushed but not broken. Remember, it's not where you are that matters, but whether you choose to turn back. You might be living in a 10 square meters room, eating rice with soy sauce, sleeping on a torn mattress. But if your mind can still think, your hands still want to do, your heart is still warm, then you still have a chance to do it again. On the contrary, if you sit in an air-conditioned apartment but your soul is empty, you don't want anything, you don't dare anything, then you are poorer than the lottery ticket seller out there. I say these words not to comfort you. I tell you to hit you in the head with a fact. You are not useless. You just haven't tried long enough. You have not gone all the way. You have not dared to sit down and ask yourself, have I really done everything? 9-1 people fail because they think they tried, while in fact they have only stopped at hoping. Willpower is not something you talk about, it is something you do and do it over and over again until there is no room for doubt. I have emphasized that willpower is not inborn, and you may be thinking to yourself, but I don't have it. I never stick to anything. I give up so quickly. If you think so, you're just like me when I was young. I was a very distracted, bored and lazy child. I remember one time my mother assigned me to wash the dishes for a week. The first day I washed it clean, the second day I started washing it roughly. The day my father pretended to have a fever. On the fourth day, I found a way to ask my sister to wash it for me. 5 cups a day still growing pile. I sat reading a book. I hate repetition. I hate feeling forced to do something. Then when I grew up, I realized that life does not forgive those who hate repetition, because 99% of achievements come from repetition, not from inspiration, not from talent, but from doing the same thing over and over again in silence. If you have ever taken a university entrance exam, you will understand that no one passes by staying up all night. The person who passes is the one who knows how to divide time to review each subject and each chapter. Each part, people who know how to sit down to study, rain or shine, tired or well, people who have not only a goal in mind but also a habit. So I confirm again, you have the will, you just haven't used it properly. It's like you have legs, but if you've never run before, you think you can't run far. But if you practice every day, you will run 5 kilometers, then 10 kilometers. Marathon. A child once crawled on the road. No one thought he would become an athlete, but then he crawled faster, then he stood up, then he ran, and then he flew. The question is not, do you have the will? The question is, do you practice willpower? A man told me his story of quitting smoking. 10 years of smoking regularly, 1 pack a day, 3 attempts to quit, 3 failures. The 4th time, he didn't do anything drastic, just wrote on his hand the words, "Don't smoke." Read it every day, every time I crave it I look at my hand. He didn't curse at himself, didn't punish himself, didn't blame himself, just simply looked, took a deep breath and got through the minute, just 1 minute. Then he got through the first day, then the first week, then the first month. Now it's been 10 years since I smoked again, no noise or fuss. It doesn't need screaming. It's something that happens in silence, in the moment no one knows about, but you still choose right. I meet many people who are very strong-willed but don't realize they have it. As a schoolgirl I tutored. She was so diligent that she stayed up until 1 o'clock every night to study by herself without anyone reminding her. But when I asked, "Do you think you have grit?" she shook her head and said she was just afraid of failing university. I laughed that fear has helped him strengthen his will. People with determination don't need to call themselves names, they just do it. The person who always says "I will try," is sometimes the one who has not done anything. And here is the next thing I want to share. We do not fail because of lack of willpower but because of disease of willpower. Listen again, willpower also has a disease. And if you don't recognize these diseases early, they will gnaw at you like termites gnaw at a house pillar, until it collapses and there's no saving it. The first disease, arrogance. Arrogant people think they can do everything, without preparation, without practice, without extra effort because they are good. And then that subjectivity makes them lose face. Arrogant people give up easily. Because when they fail, they can't stand the hit to their ego. The second disease, timidity, is the opposite of pride. Shy people are afraid of everything, afraid of making mistakes, afraid of being laughed at, afraid of bothering, afraid of failure. And so they don't start anything. They think a lot, consider a lot, hesitate a lot but then stand still. And one day they wake up and find themselves still standing at the starting line while someone else has run halfway around the world. Third disease, greediness. This disease is terribly common in the social media age you are starting to learn. After 3 days, I found it too difficult, so I gave up. After a week of studying Japanese, I got bored. Then learned to run. 3 days later the rain stopped. So you jump from one thing to another like a butterfly among flowers. It's beautiful but it has no depth, no solidity, and you can't build your life on something superficial. Fourth disease, hesitation, hesitation. People with this disease know clearly what they need to do but always put it off until tomorrow, always thinking about waiting for the right time. But there is no right time. It's true that when you start time waits for no one. It just floats. And when you don't act, you're letting someone else get ahead of you not by talent but by starting earlier. Fifth disease, lack of perseverance. This is the most dangerous disease. It ruins all the hard work. You work for 1 month, 2 months and then stop. Because you don't see results, because you're bullied, because you're tired, but you don't know that the real results always come after you think about giving up. Just one more step, just one more week. But no, you stop and all your hard work goes down the drain. You may have one or more of the above diseases. It's okay, I used to be like that too. The important thing is not whether you are sick or not, but whether you are honest enough to recognize it or not. Because only when you see where you are wrong can you correct it. Willpower is something that must be learned, trained, and maintained like a good car. If you don't change the oil or maintain it, it will eventually die. A boy practices cycling in a small alley. He fell for the 6th time, his knees were sore, his eyes were red. His father stood next to him, still patiently holding the bike still, not coaxing him, just saying softly, "Get up." The boy was silent, got up, and climbed into the car. By the 8th time, he pedaled 3 meters, then 5 meters, and then he was all the way down the alley. I asked the father afterwards, "What do you think made him try so hard?" He smiled, seeing me standing there, he neither blamed nor left. I kept thinking about that answer. It turns out that sometimes determination just needs a look, a presence, someone who believes in you. And then I realized this. Willpower does not arise in absolute solitude. Sometimes it is ignited by an outside spark, a word of encouragement, a classmate, a teacher who doesn't laugh at you when you're wrong. Or more simply, someone who believes you can. So if you are trying to change yourself, find someone like that, not to lean on but to have more reasons not to give up. However, there are times when you have to be the one to light your own fire. No one comes, no one pats your shoulder, no one waits, there is only you in the room, in the dark, with the fatigue spreading through your shoulders, and you still sit there to write the last line, read the last chapter of the book, practice the movements, do the work that needs to be done. It's those moments you don't see, but you are growing millimeter by millimeter. I remember writing books all night, not because of a sudden inspiration but because I promised myself I would finish on time. Once I was awake for 3 nights in a row, to the point where I could no longer distinguish what was a dream from what was reality. But the book came out, and then came thousands of letters from readers. I don't tell this to brag, I tell it to you to see. What made me able to do it was not talent but not allowing myself to give up. I'm not smarter than you, maybe even less, but I have a habit: once I start, I have to finish. The Japanese have a concept called gamebaru, which means to try to the end. Even though no one knows, no one sees, I learn one thing from them. True strength is what survives when no one applauds, what you hold on to like a small flame in the dark. No matter how much the wind wants to blow. And when you live like that long enough, you become unbreakable. Let's go back to the first question. If you want to succeed, then stop looking for shortcuts. There are no shortcuts. Shortcut sellers are usually scamming you. Successful teaching clips in 3 steps. Courses that promise to get rich in a week are bait, don't swallow. Success is a long journey, with lots of dirt, sweat and few fireworks. But if you take it one step at a time, one day at a time, you will get there. Successful people do not necessarily have high IQs, but they certainly have high willpower. They know how to delay gratification, they dare to wait. They know how to grit their teeth and endure suffering for 3 years to be happy for 30 years instead of being happy for 3 months and then suffering for the rest of their lives. And I want you to try something today. Pick one thing you gave up on and start over. Just one thing. Learn a skill, read a book, teach on time. Eat healthy, practice speaking English, whatever, as long as you've failed at it. And this time you won't quit. Don't wait for inspiration. Inspiration is unreliable. Inspiration comes and goes like clouds. You can't wait for clouds to water your fields. You must have your own irrigation system, your study schedule, your alarm clock, your discipline. A friend of mine was addicted to games and dropped out of college. 5 years later, he became a software engineer for a foreign company, not because of his sudden talent but because of a simple decision from now on. Stop playing games and learn programming for 30 minutes every day. Only 30 minutes but regularly. After 1 year he knows how to code. After 2 years he had a product, after 3 years he was offered a job, after 5 years he bought his first apartment. I asked how you did it. You laugh, because I'm annoyed with myself. And that's the best start for any change when you can't stand the weak version of yourself anymore. Don't wait for anyone to save you, no one will come. Don't expect anyone to discover your talent. No one is free. You have to save yourself. You have to find yourself. You must dig your own well of energy from your own desert. And one day you will find water. Someone told me. But everything needs a little luck. Yes, I don't deny that, but luck is something you can't control, while willpower is something you can train. And the strange thing is that people with high willpower often have more luck. Not because their luck is better, but because they do it long enough for opportunities to arise. And when it comes, they're ready to grab it. As for those who are not persistent, even when luck knocks on their door, they do not have the strength to open the door or open it but have nothing in hand to exchange. I once knew a very good student. He understood everything he learned, but he had a bad habit of giving up halfway. He quit learning Japanese halfway, quit learning drawing halfway, quit learning an instrument halfway. In the end, no skills matter. 10 years later, his friends all had stable careers, but he was still struggling with the question of what he should do. I don't think you lack the ability, you just lack the will to see it through. They don't pay for half-assed work. People pay people for work done. You may know little, but if you do your job thoroughly, you will still be respected. If you know many things but they are all half-baked, you are just diluting things and not creating real value. And let me tell you a little secret. A person with determination is rare. But what is rare always has a price. In a world where everyone is easily distracted. A person who knows how to concentrate is a good person. In a world where everyone complains. The one who knows how to persevere is the winner. In a society where everyone wants instant results, the one who waits will go far. I am not exaggerating. Try sitting in a coffee shop and pay attention. How many people can open a book and read for 5 minutes without taking out their phone? How many people can eat a meal without touching a screen? How many people sit down to work without opening a YouTube tab? Training does not start with great things. It starts with small repetitive behaviors that form folds in the brain. And if you want to practice willpower, you don't need to go into seclusion in a mountain temple. You just need to start by waking up 15 minutes early, folding your blanket neatly, and reading 10 pages of a book every day. Don't procrastinate on your scheduled tasks, just keep small commitments. You will be surprised to find yourself starting to believe in yourself again. A person who begins to honor his promises to himself is one who has set foot on the path of true freedom. Why? Because most of our suffering is due to our breaking promises to ourselves. I said I would exercise and then I didn't. I said I would learn English and then I didn't. I said I would go to bed early and then surf TikTok until 2 a.m. Every time we break a promise, our trust is diminished a drop. And then there comes a time when we look in the mirror and can't believe the person looking back at us. If you want self-respect, keep your word to yourself. And if you break a promise, don't beat yourself up. Please do it again. Don't wait until next week, don't wait until the beginning of the month. Starting over is the greatest power of man. People lack willpower not because they are weak, but because they give up that right too soon. I remember a friend who was unemployed for nearly 2 years. He was a boss and then the company went bankrupt. He was so depressed that he didn't want to leave his room. Then one day he scratched his head and wrote 3 big letters on the wall and started again. That morning he woke up at 5 o'clock to jog around the lake, in the afternoon rewrite his CV, and in the evening take an online course. 7 months later, he was offered a position as operations manager for a growing stop. I asked, "What made you come back?" He said because he was tired of being a victim. Yes. The moment you refuse to be a victim is the moment you awaken to your power. I don't teach you how to get rich. I don't teach you success. I just share how to master yourself. And when you master yourself, no one can stop you. Because the strongest person is not the one who defeats others but the one who defeats the weakness within himself. Sometimes I sit and think about the quiet but great people around me, not famous, not winning awards, not mentioned in the press. But they are people who have gone through the years with determination in their legs and a heart that never stops beating for what they believe is right. An old lady who lives at the beginning of my alley is over 70. Every morning she rides her bike to the market carrying vegetables before dawn. People asked, "Why don't you rest?" You said your hands were still shaking but you still wanted to work. I saw the bundles of vegetables you neatly arranged, washed, and carefully tied as if you had put into them a lifetime of discipline. You didn't go to any school, but you taught me the biggest lesson about willpower, working honestly, regularly, and not bullying. Willpower is not climbing mountains or crossing deserts. Sometimes it's simply living kindly through every little thing, sticking to the right thing. Even if everyone around you chooses the easy thing, you go to work on time. Even if it's raining, you wash the dishes clean, even if no one checks, you keep your word, even if others have gone back on their word first. I once talked to a retired doctor. He said the hardest thing in the medical profession is not saving people, but learning more every day, because other people's lives are in your hands. And for 40 years, he has not let a day go by without opening a medical book. He told the story of some days when he came home from work, his eyes were squinting, but he still tried to read a few pages because that was discipline. He said it himself. No one forced him. And I realized that willpower does not need supervision. People with willpower are people who know how to supervise themselves. They do not need to be reminded, do not need deadlines on their backs. They do it because they see value in it. This is what I realized after many years of writing books, teaching, and living. People with willpower are often not outstanding, they are not noisy, they do not boast, but they are the ones who keep the family running, the company standing, the society from collapsing. They are the silent nails holding the roof. Without them, everything will fall apart. You do not need to become famous, but if you become a person with willpower, you will be someone that is needed everywhere. Everyone wants to work with someone they can trust. Someone who keeps his word, someone who does things thoroughly, someone who does not make excuses. I say these things not to make you feel pressured, but to show you that living with willpower is a very practical choice, not fancy, not lofty, and anyone can start. Don't think that willpower is something nothing big. I used to practice it by not letting the alarm clock ring twice. Just get up once, wash your face, don't scroll through your phone. Just that, for 3 months. Then I started to feel more in control of myself. From then on, I could do bigger things, write regularly, study regularly, work more effectively. People without willpower are people who live like leaves drifting with the stream. They nod to whatever people say. They let circumstances decide everything. When they're happy, they do it, when they're sad, they ignore it, when people praise them, they hate it. Living like that, you won't know who you are. You won't grow up. To grow up, you need a backbone. Willpower is the backbone of the soul. And there's one more thing I want you to remember. Don't confuse willpower with stubbornness. People with willpower are not people who just rush into doing everything. They know what to keep, what to let go. They know how to choose the battle worth fighting, and when they choose, they don't turn back. People with true willpower are flexible in the way of doing but steadfast in the goal. People without willpower, on the contrary, constantly change their goals but stubbornly keep the old way of doing. That difference determines who will reach the destination. People with willpower are not rigid. They know how to get tired, how to get discouraged, but they do not let their emotions drag them down. They rest at the right time and then continue. They do not punish themselves for a single mistake. They adjust, they improve, they correct, they grow from failure, not being overwhelmed by it. And if you have ever failed, look at it as a stone. Don't carry it forever. Put it down as a step. Every time you fall, don't just ask why. Ask yourself what you have learned from this time and then get up. You don't have to be good right away, just do and become stupid after each fall. You may think willpower sounds good. But I have no foundation, no one to guide me, no environment. I understand because I used to be that kind of person. And the longer I live, the more I believe there is no perfect environment. Only some people know how to use every situation to train themselves. Weak people blame the situation. People with determination turn the situation into an exercise. No money. Read borrowed books. No time. Cut off social media. No mentor. Learn from failure. No companion. Go alone first. Someone will catch up with you later. The only thing you must not lack is determination. And determination must also be learned. Because the human mind is easily shaken, easily discouraged. You think you are determined, but just about a fatigue, a rain, a judgment, and you give up. So determination must go hand in hand with discipline. Determination is the engine. Discipline is the wheel. Without the wheel, the engine does not run. If you want to succeed, learn to endure boredom. Everyone is excited when they start. But the winner is the one who knows how to live with repetition. Read 10 pages of a book every day. 5 years later, you read more than 18,000 pages, double or triple the average person's bookshelf. Learn 10 English words every day. A year is 3,650 words, enough to communicate fluently. Success does not come from grandiose actions, it comes from steady, quiet, silent but uninterrupted steps. You have to live like a steel door in the middle of a storm, wind, rain. You remain closed, not dragged away, not drunk. People will look and know that this person is not easily shaken. A person with determination is not someone who never falls, but someone who falls and still gets up again, again, and again. And each time they get up, they stand a little higher. People say that hard work makes talent. I don't believe it. I believe it. Perseverance in achieving success does not require hardship, just regularity. You don't need to grit your teeth and endure like a monk. You just need to keep your word to yourself. When you start living by principles, you will find your life tidier, like a room cleaned every day. At first, you don't see any difference, but after a month, 3 months, a year, you suddenly realize that you have become a different person. I find myself calmer, less complaining, know what I want, and most importantly, you are no longer afraid of difficulties because you understand. Every difficulty will eventually pass if you do not give up before it. That is when willpower is no longer something you have to try to create. It becomes a nature, like muscles after thousands of times lifting weights, like calluses after 100 days holding a hammer, like courage after each time overcoming fear. I am not telling you this to force you to become a perfect person. I just want you to remake your old self in a more steadfast, more alert, more courageous way. And if you ask how long it will take me to see results, I do not know. Because each person has a different speed, but I know one thing for sure: people with willpower will sooner or later win, not win over others but win over themselves of yesterday. And that is already a life worth living. Part 2, The Method of Training Willpower. I once asked a fake blacksmith, "How can you have such strong arms?" He did not answer right away, just gave me he took a red-hot iron bar and said, "Try the hammering 100 times first." I did as he asked. My hands were numb and sweat was pouring down my face. I gasped and said, "I don't have enough strength." He laughed, "I used to be as weak as you, but if I grow a little stronger each day, there's nothing I can't train myself to do." And I realized the willpower as well as the arm muscles. No one is born with it. No one suddenly wakes up and becomes resilient. It all has to start somewhere. The will to change. So, before learning how to develop willpower, you need to answer this question. Do you really want to be different? Not just talk, but want it to the point of daring to cut old habits, daring to live a different schedule, daring to accept loneliness to focus on yourself, daring to give up easy things to choose the right things. If you really want to, then go for it. Training willpower is not a matter of blindly using force, but of knowing how to coordinate all three: intelligence, emotion and action. It sounds simple, but getting those three things together isn't easy. Because there are people who are very intelligent but emotionally weak, understand all the arguments. But when someone badmouthed me, I gave up. There are people who are very emotional, love people, love work, have passion in life but lack direction. So sometimes I do this, sometimes I run to that. The fire burns but does not become a flame, it just flares up and then goes out. And there are people who work very hard, act non-stop but lack thinking and selection, so they do a lot of work but the results are low. Running all year round but still marking time. Intelligence is the compass, emotion is the fuel, action is the feet. Without one you cannot go far. You must learn to think clearly to know what you should do. You have to use your emotions properly so that they don't lead you in the wrong direction. And you have to act at the right time and in the right way to make your intentions come true. Where to start? From thought. Think of your head as a field. If you do not plant anything, weeds will grow. And most of the weeds in our heads are worry, guilt, jealousy, procrastination. If you want to develop willpower, you must start by mastering your thoughts. Don't let your head become a cesspool for useless news, toxic words and weak beliefs that other people put in it. You can prevent that by taking at least 15 minutes every day to sit still and observe your thoughts. Don't try to chase it away, just see it clearly, write it down and ask, is this thought helping me? If not, let it go. Gradually you will see your mind become clearer, no longer messy, no longer like a market. Once you think clearly, start nurturing your emotions properly. People with weak willpower are often people who live by temporary emotions. Sadness is skipping school, tiredness is skipping practice, which means quitting work, happiness is making random promises. Emotions control them like a kite in the wind. You don't need to kill emotions, just learn how to pull emotions back to the right place. It is not the driver, it is just the wind blower. The best way to train emotions is to focus on long-term goals. You have to ask, does this serve what I want to achieve? If not, don't do it. No matter how attractive it is, if it is, do it. No matter how boring it is right now, remember emotions are clouds, goals are stars. Clouds can obscure them. But if you know where the stars are, you are still on the right track. A friend who is an engineer has a dream of opening a book cafe. Every time he mentions it, his eyes light up, but every time he plans to quit his job to do it, he hesitates. What if he fails? What if he loses everything? Then he stays still. Days and months pass, 10 years later I meet him again. He is still an engineer, still smiling and talking, but his eyes are no longer bright. He said he thought it over. Maybe that dream is just a childish dream. I didn't say anything because I know it's not a dream, it's just that he doesn't have the willpower to turn it into life. That's why. After thinking and feeling, you have to act without action. All intelligence and passion are just smoke, leaving nothing behind, taking no shape. True willpower is forged when you start doing something, not when you sit and think beautifully, but when you get into it, start hesitating, making mistakes, adjusting, then making mistakes, then adjusting again like a blacksmith. No iron bar can be shaped without fire and hammer. So do how to take effective action. First, your action must be specific. Don't say, I want to get healthier. Say, I will exercise for 30 minutes every morning at 6 o'clock. Don't say, I want to learn more. Let's say every night I learn 5 English words before bed, so specific that you can't go wrong because of what you measure. You can improve. Second, action must be regular. Willpower is not born from a single explosion. It comes from doing small things repeatedly every day, consistently, without interruption, without excuses. There is a very simple way to test your willpower. Look at your calendar last week. Did you do what you intended to do for 7 days? Otherwise you are letting emotions rob you of action, and to keep action consistent you need something that is not very appealing. Discipline. I know everyone hates this word because it suggests pressure, restraint, and loss of freedom. But the truth is that discipline does not kill freedom, it creates freedom. Because when you master yourself, you are truly free. A person without discipline is a person who is dragged away by old habits, by temptations, by seductive words. They think they are free, but in reality they are slaves to procrastination. I used to be that person, staying up late, overeating, working on impulse, waiting until the last minute to start. Then one day I found myself exhausted, my mind was a mess, my work was taking over, I was no longer in control of my life, and I decided enough was enough. From today, I will schedule every time slot, every job, and follow it like a soldier. 3 months later, I saw a miracle happen. Not only did I get work done, I also had time to live. Discipline does not kill creativity. Discipline is what keeps creativity from drifting into fantasy. And the final action you need is corrective action. Every plan has flaws, every goal has risks. You won't get it right the first time. But a resilient person is one who does not give up before the first adjustment. They are willing to change the way they do things but not abandon the goal. Like mountain climbers encountering a landslide, they change their path but still reach the top. People without willpower, on the contrary, see rocks and turn back. I know there are people who can't learn English well, not because they are not smart, but because they only know one way of learning, and when it doesn't work, they give up. Instead of trying another way, they gave up on their dream. But people want to cross the river but only know how to swim, when encountering whirlpools they cry to heaven. While the determined person will find a sea, find a bridge, or even build a boat, do whatever it takes, as long as he does not stand still. Someone asked me, why do I know I need to change but still can't? I didn't answer right away, just asked back, have you ever actually made a decision? They were silent and sighed, are you sure? Because that's what I've realized. People often hope for results without ever really deciding. They have vague wishes, vague desires. Like if only I could lose 10 kilograms, if only I could do what I love, if only I wasn't afraid anymore. But all of those things aren't decisions, they're just dreams. They're things we say for fun to lighten our hearts, not things we're willing to pay a price for. A real decision always comes with action, always involves giving up, losing something, and making a commitment not to anyone else but to yourself. I remember the time I decided to quit smoking, I didn't tell anyone. I just threw away all the cigarettes, lighters, and ashtrays. I wrote down the starting date on a piece of paper and then I read it aloud to myself from today. I'm no longer a smoker. I read it like an oath. And every time the craving comes, I don't run away. I sit still, feeling the restlessness, the pain in my body. Then remind yourself this is the price of the decision I am paying and I will not go back on my word. Many people think that willpower is trying to endure, but it is not. True willpower is being loyal to a decision. Even if emotions change, circumstances change, people around change. And sometimes what you need to do to train willpower is not to try harder but to make a decision once and for all. Resolutely, without leaving any way out, without leaving an easy way out. People become weak because they always leave a way out. But willpower is born when you burn all the bridges of retreat. But how to make such a decision? First, you must have a reason stronger than fear. Fear is what keeps you afraid of failure, afraid of being laughed at, afraid of losing money, afraid of losing people, afraid of losing yourself. And you can only overcome it when the reason to move forward is big enough to override that fear. You want to learn a new skill? Ask, if I don't learn, what will I be like in 5 years? You want to quit a bad habit? Imagine, if I keep going like this, then who will I be in 10 years? Let the fear of wasting your life be greater than the fear of starting over. And then you choose a way of not turning back. A psychologist once said, "We are the sum of the small decisions we make every day." You don't become strong because of one uplifting afternoon, but each time you make the right choice in silence. Choose to keep your word when no one knows, choose to continue when every reason to give up is valid. That's why I appreciate the smallest moments of the day. The moment you are faced with a choice. Sleep in or wake up early, eat junk food or eat clean. Watch YouTube or open a book, complain or do one thing at a time. If you win 51%, you are making progress. You don't have to be perfect, just a little better than yesterday. And to help yourself make the right decisions, you need to practice like a muscle. Practice small things. For example, you hate washing dishes. I decided that I would wash the dishes right after dinner tonight. No need to be grand, just be immediate and do it thoroughly, do it cleanly, do it without fuss. It was an exercise in willpower. You can create a whole list of things to do during the week, each like a brick. And you just have to put each brick in the right place, day after day. Then you will have the whole wall. Don't think small things are not worth it. The strongest fortress of willpower is always built from the smallest discipline. One of my students confessed to me that she knew she should do it, but every time she sat down at her desk, she felt bored to death, as if some invisible force was pulling her up. Find an excuse, I'm not surprised. Because the greatest enemy of willpower is not failure, but boredom. It's boring not because it's bad, but because it doesn't give us an immediate reward. But the human mind craves quick rewards. We are programmed to seek pleasure and avoid suffering. So we choose phones over books, social media over dinner, coffee and gossip over writing a program. But willpower begins to form when you don't let boredom dictate your actions. Name it. Oh, I'm bored, keep doing it. Like the farmer who still goes to the field when it's gloomy. Like a tennis player who still hits the ball when his hand hurts, like a writer who still writes when he is stuck. Because you don't do it because of feelings, you do it because of what you choose. And to do that there is an extremely practical method that I call non-bargaining action. You told me you would run for 15 minutes, no bargaining, 10 minutes is fine. You intend to write a diary page, write a full page, no less, no less. No matter how tired I am today, how rainy I am today, or how bad my mood is, I just do it. When you practice the reflex of saying and doing, you will feel a different confidence. Because self-belief doesn't come from reading inspirational books, but from the feeling that I kept my word. You keep your word to yourself, you no longer feel like a coward. And when you start taking regular action, you will encounter another obstacle, laziness. This thing is not okay. It is gentle, even kind. It whispered, I'm tired today, so it's okay to give me a day off, or we can do it tomorrow. Then you nod, then you feel good, then you slip. Fighting laziness is not a one-time victory, but a minute-by-minute watch. A determined person is not someone who is always energetic, but someone who knows he will be lazy, so he builds barriers in advance. They turn off phone notifications, they put their desks far away from the bed. They break big tasks into small tasks, they don't give their brains a chance to make excuses. They put themselves in a position where they have to do it. Like soldiers going to battle, there is no way back. And then after a while, they are no longer dragged down by laziness because the action has become a habit. I read a book once that said if you do something for 66 days in a row, your brain will start to see it as second nature. Meaning, instead of forcing yourself to do it, you will feel empty if you don't do it. Think about it, if you practice that kind of willpower for a year, you won't need anyone to push you anymore, you won't need any external motivation. You are self-driven, and as such, you are the freest person. And I have to add this. Don't let other people control your willpower. Some people are only diligent when they are being watched, only study when they are tutored, and only work when they are being tested. That kind of willpower is not lasting because it is borrowed. A truly resilient person is one who works when no one is watching and still gets the job done. They do it not to prove anything but because they see it as right and necessary. I once met a student who cycled 5 kilometers to the district library every night. No one told him, no one paid him, just because it was quiet there and he wanted to read seriously. I asked, "Why do you study so hard?" He replied softly, "To avoid living like my father." I remember that saying all my life because it shows that the strongest willpower always comes from within. From some pain you don't want to repeat. Find that pain within you and use it as an anchor, as a reason, as a source of heat. Don't drown it out by pretending to be okay. Look at it. And promised myself, I will not let that decide my life anymore. People often mistake willpower for personality. Those who are born strong will stay strong, those who are weak will stay weak forever. But the truth is that willpower is a must. Take care of it like a muscle. You practice for a while, it swells, you stop practicing, it shrinks. People who once had determination, if not maintained, can still fall into laziness, procrastination, and weakness as usual. Don't be under the illusion that if you have the willpower then you don't need to worry anymore. Keeping willpower is harder than having it. I once fell into that illusion after a period of very productive work. I allowed myself a little break, but that little break stretched into a week and then a month. By the time I get back to my desk, I can't concentrate for more than 10 minutes. I get frustrated with myself, I get irritable, I lose patience with little things. And I understand my willpower has waned. To get it back, I have to start all over again, from the exact exercises I used to practice teaching on time, reading the correct number of pages, without begging myself, without pity. And I learned something valuable. Willpower is part of your mental immune system. You have to nurture it every day. So how to raise? By small but persistent exercises. Choose a certain time of day to do something repeatedly. Don't choose the time arbitrarily. Your brain needs to know it's time to work. Just like children know when it's time to eat and when it's time to sleep, the more you create rhythm, the less willpower you have to make decisions. Because the fastest way to kill willpower is to constantly make small decisions. What to wear today, what to eat this morning, what to study first, how many minutes to exercise. All those choices, if you let your brain process every day, it will get tired. And when tired, it will choose the easy one, and the easy one is often not what is needed. Set up a fixed study schedule, simple menu, clear timetable, don't give your brain any excuses. You might think that's boring. But the truly resilient person is the one who accepts boredom as part of progress. They don't ask for every day to be fun, they just want each day to not be in vain. I have a friend who is a musician. He practices his guitar every morning at 6 o'clock. Even though the performance was until 2 a.m. the day before, I asked him, why didn't he sleep more? Who checked? He said, because I'm afraid one day I'll feel lazy but still allow myself to be lazy. And that's why he plays the guitar as if it were part of his body, because he lives with it as regularly as breathing. Willpower is not a momentary act of heroism. It's a lifestyle. And like any lifestyle, you have to choose it every day. You have to ask yourself what kind of life you are living. Every action you take is either strengthening or weakening you, adding layers to your spirit or taking it apart piece by piece. Willpower is also a choice of honor. You can forgive others for betraying you, but you can't forgive yourself if you keep breaking your promises to yourself. Because you have to live with your head every day. You can smile to the world, speak well to the boss, play a good role in society. But when night falls, you can't fool yourself. You know how you lived. You know whether you keep your promise or not. You know that day whether you are a steady person or a dragged person. And when you live too long in small troubles with yourself, you no longer have the strength to dream big dreams. Because you no longer believe you want to live big. It starts by keeping every little detail in life just right. You don't need to work magic. You just live as if you respect every minute of your life. A silent man, eyes full of restraint. He did not stand out from the crowd, was not articulate, and was not a good storyteller. But when he said a sentence, the whole room fell silent, not because he shouted loudly but because his voice had weight. I understand now. This is the type of person who has gone through many silent battles with himself, has wanted to give up many times but did not, has wavered between what is easy and what is right. Misunderstood, doubted but still steadfast that dignity does not come from title but from forged willpower. And I realized one thing, people with determination do not need to compete with anyone. They don't need to win arguments, they don't need to show off their achievements, they don't need to go online to prove they're doing well, because they have something that people without willpower will never understand. Self-esteem comes from within. They know where they are going, they know what they have to do. They are not caught up in the social frenzy, do not follow trends, and do not need applause. And that calmness is the clearest manifestation of mature will. The weak run, the strong stand, the steady walk slowly. But sure. I once talked to a long-distance runner who said the key wasn't speed, but being able to maintain the correct breathing rhythm for the entire 26 miles. I think that's true for life too, you don't need to live too fast. You just need to keep the rhythm of life you have chosen deep enough, steady enough and without interruption. And to keep that rhythm, you need a mindset that is not in a hurry, not worrying about where others have gone, whether you have succeeded or not, but whether you have made progress today. You don't need to win over anyone else, you just need to be a little better than you were yesterday and you're on the right track. And then there comes a time when you will find that willpower is not just strength, it is a quiet joy. The joy when you look back on the day and see that you were not dragged away by any temptation, did not fall into any trap, did not break any promise to yourself, you sit there with no one clapping, no one acknowledging, but you feel warm inside. That is the biggest reward. People think rewards are money, degrees, and compliments. But people with grit know that the real reward is feeling like they're living up to their values. And the strange thing is that when you live right, live deeply, live sustainably, the things out there start to come to you. Opportunities, relationships, and achievements seem to be attracted by the magnetic field of someone who is living in alignment with themselves. I've seen people like that who don't promote themselves, don't try to impress, yet people want to work with them because they're trustworthy. And trustworthy people are rare in today's fragile world. So if you are training your willpower, you don't need to rush. You are building an invisible foundation and every lasting structure depends on the foundation. Don't compare yourself to anyone. They may be painting the facade but you are getting the core right. Be patient because your willpower as an adult will make you irreplaceable. A single mother working 3 jobs a day. Morning cleaning in hotel, afternoon selling at market, evening cutting thread for garment factory. I asked her, "Aren't you tired?" She smiled, "Tired. But what will the 2 children eat if they stop?" It is a will that does not need to be learned from books, does not need to be named, does not need to be diagrammed. It comes from a love big enough to forget itself. Willpower at its deepest level is no longer something you do for yourself, but something you do because you can't help it. That mother never complained, never told her hardships, never showed off her burdens. She gets through the day with rough hands and a strong heart. No one gave her a medal. But if there are silent warriors in this world, you are one of them. And I also believe that within each of us is such a seed. It's just that sometimes you haven't let it sprout because you haven't gone to the end of your perseverance. You just tried a little determination for a few days. Practice sometimes. You haven't really hit your limit and then bounced off it. You never turned off all the devices. Sit still in front of a book and tell yourself not to get up until you finish this chapter. You have never forced yourself to complete a task even though your mind is rebelling. You never grit your teeth and continue when you're shaking, eyes open, and heart in turmoil. But if you ever do, even just once, you will never be the same person again. You will see that determination is not something to be shouted about. It's quiet, but it changes you from the inside out. It makes you walk straighter, talk less, and look at others with softer eyes. Because you understand everyone is carrying something. A truly strong person never looks down on anyone because they were once weak, fell, or stumbled. Crawling through the day in silence, they know the price of a minute of standing up. And so they are not arrogant, they are just steadfast. A determined person never gives up too soon. They know many things only start to pay off after the point where others have already withdrawn. They know how to go through the steepest part. The darkest road leads to the flower. They know there are no shortcuts to perseverance. I read a study about marathon runners. Most people dropped out between kilometers 35 and 38. That is, less than 7 kilometers before the finish line. Because that's when the whole body hurts the most. Every reason to give up is valid. But whoever gets through that part will reach the finish line. Life is the same. You don't know what kilometer you are at, but if you keep going, you may be closer than you think. Do just a little more, just one more line, just one more session, just one more little effort. The difference between success and failure is sometimes just one more try. And then when you've lived like that long enough, you'll find that willpower is no longer something you have to strain to create. It runs in your blood. You don't need to remind yourself to try to go, you just do it like breathing, like a reflex. Because you have become a person with depth, discipline, and resilience. You don't have to prove anything to life. You just have to live at your own pace and that pace. It's the beat of someone who fell, cried, stood up and never went back to the same place again. I have met all kinds of people. Smart people but bad lives. People with degrees but insecure. The man talks like a dragon and phoenix but his soul is rotten. And I was one of them at some point. That's why I don't judge anyone by their appearance or by a few achievements hanging on the wall. I just want to know one thing when I look: how do you live? Do you keep your word to yourself? Do you do the right thing when no one is watching? Would you go on when there was no more applause? If so, you are a determined person and that is enough to take you far. I tell you these things not to make you admire me, nor to make you feel inferior. I just want you to understand one thing: every great effort begins with a small but unyielding determination. And then when you practice the habit of taking action, regardless of rain or shine, mood or circumstances, nothing can push you off the path you choose. No lover leaving, no financial failure, no criticism can break you. Because you don't go to be admired. You go because you know who you are. You go because you want to live a life without asking for permission. You leave because you were weak, wormy, and broken. And you don't want to go back to that hole again. Pick a principle and stick to it. Design a life for yourself, no matter how small, quiet, but orderly, meaningful, and full of self-respect. Live as if you are the only person in the world responsible for yourself. And then you'll see you don't need to change the world. You just have to keep a promise to yourself. If you have heard this far, then you are strong enough to start. Don't wait for perfection, don't wait for someone to accompany you. Stand up today with empty hands and a warm heart. And then step by step, you will forge your own weapon. That weapon is not knowledge, skills or degrees but willpower. Something that no one can give you and no one can take away from you. It is the most indestructible part of you. Hold on. Thank you for being patient enough to go through this journey. Not because it's long, but because it requires listening. And not all listening is pleasant. Especially when it touches areas we tend to avoid. Weakness, laziness, broken promises to myself. If you're still here, it means you're serious about your life in a way that many people stop at New Year's resolutions or verbal declarations. Training your willpower is not a dry exercise. It's about who you want to be and whether you dare to hone yourself every day to be worthy of that vision. If this book has anywhere made you stop for a few seconds to look at your habits or made you feel ashamed of a seemingly harmless procrastination, then I believe it has fulfilled its basic function as a serious work that unsettles you in the necessary way. So, if you find yourself with something to say after reading the book, please don't keep silent. Leave a comment, a view, a review. Whether it's praise or criticism, I want to know. Not for myself but for the next readers. They deserve to read books in an open space of thinking and reflection. A book is only truly alive when it is discussed, when it is continued in the minds of others. Don't be afraid to bring up difficult books, books you've been hesitant about, or books that have left you speechless long after you've read them. It is these books that often require us writers to dig deep into ourselves in order to transform and convey. Because I don't believe in stories told just for fun. I believe in stories that make people want to live differently. Tell me what you are looking for in this noisy and hurried world. And if possible, let me accompany you. Not as a storyteller but as someone who is also learning to keep a promise to herself with each page, each word, each breath. And now goodbye and see you again.